Welcome to our channel Students Homeopathy, and let's learn together. In this video, we will discuss an important note from Organon of Medicine, that is totality of symptoms. First, let's discuss about what is Hahnemann's view on totality of symptoms. Hahnemann has discussed about totality of symptoms under aphorism number 6, 7, 15, 16, 17 and 18 of his Organon. According to him, the totality of symptoms is the outwardly reflected picture of internal essence of a disease. It includes all the perceptible signs and symptoms that represent the disease in its whole extent. So, the totality of symptoms is the language of disease. In other words, the disease expresses itself or makes itself known outwardly through totality of symptoms. The selection of most similar remedies solely depends on it. According to Hahnemann, totality of symptoms is the changes in the health of the patient cognizable by our senses. It is nothing but the disease itself and constitutes a whole. The totality and the morbidly deranged vital force are one and the same. It is the sum of all the symptoms in each individual case of disease. It is the only outward expression through which diseases express their need of aid. It is the sole guide to direct us in the choice of a remedy. It includes the symptoms those are felt by the patient himself, remarked by his attendants, and observed by the physician himself. Next, let's know about Stuart explanation of totality. According to Stuart, totality of symptom means all the symptoms of the case which are capable of being logically combined into a harmonious and consistent whole, having form, coherency, and individuality. It is the true and only basis for every homeopathic prescription. According to him, the totality of symptoms is not merely the numerical aggregate of all symptoms, but their sum total or the organic whole as an individuality. He has given an example of setting off a machine to explain this. He wrote, as only getting the single dissociated parts of a machine together cannot be called as a machine, similarly, numerical aggregate of symptoms cannot be called as totality. Thus, it is the numerical aggregate plus the idea or plan which unites them in a special manner to give them its characteristic form. According to him, the totality not only represents the disease but also the remedy. The totality must express an idea. The totality obtained by studying a case from the diagnostic angle, that is by emphasizing on pathognomonic and common symptoms of the disease, represents only a diagnostic idea. And for a homeopath, this totality has the least importance. What homeopath needs is the totality representing a therapeutic idea. That is, the therapeutic totality containing individualizing symptoms of a case. So now let's see what is Kant's explanation of totality. According to Kant, as mentioned in lecture 12 of his philosophy, totality of symptoms may be considered to be all that is essential of the disease. It helps us to individualize between diseases and between remedies. It represents the entire picture of a disease as well as the drug. Everything that we can perceive of a disease through our five senses and external understanding belong to the totality of symptoms. The symptom picture should be so formed that the idea of nature of sickness becomes clear to our mind. The little or vague symptoms may be left out while forming the totality, but the characteristics which are the essence of it should never be ignored, because they are the sole guide in selecting the most appropriate homeopathic remedy. We should consider every sickness as a new sickness and should never be biased by our previous prescriptions. We should study, criticize, and examine the patient in order to get the totality. However, it becomes too difficult for us if the patient hides something from us and feels reluctant to open up. Next, Kant says, we should not make a grand whole of symptoms only, but we should reposition them according to their value. That is, which are common, which are particular, and which are general. And after all, which ones among them are individual and characteristic. Next, let's see what is Boenninghausen's understanding of totality. As is mentioned in Introduction to BTPB, Boenninghausen hypothesized that the totality was not only the sum total of the symptoms, but was in itself one grand symptom, the symptom of the patient. According to him, whether they are the symptoms of individual parts or the totality of symptoms, to become completed, they must have three factors. That is, locality, that is the location or the parts, organs or tissues affected. Second, sensation, that is the kind of pain, sensation, functional or organic change characterizing the morbid process. And lastly, the third one, conditions of aggravation or amelioration of the symptoms, that is the modalities or the circumstances modifying the suffering. He also added a fourth factor, that is the concomitant symptom, and thus introduced the doctrine of concomitance, that is the doctrine of the totality of the case, which must include the concomitants. According to him, the concomitant symptom is to the totality what the condition of aggravation or amelioration is to the single symptom. It is the differentiating factor. Next, H.A. Roberts has discussed about totality of symptoms in his philosophy under chapter 9, that is analysis of the case. He also says the same thing, that is the totality of symptoms is the only basis on which the homeopathic prescription depends, and it should include many individual symptoms that show the characteristics and personality of the patient. According to him, practically saying, diagnostic symptoms are of very less or almost no importance in selecting the simillimum. However, they help to exclude those remedies which do not correspond to the genius of the disease, that is, whose pathogenesis don't chiefly involve those organs or parts which are affected in this case of disease. So let's explain it. Suppose we have a case of mumps, and we have a lot of medicines and we have to select one among them. Now, we can simply exclude those remedies which do not chiefly affect the parotid gland, but it has different sphere of action. Likewise, if we have a case of hemorrhage, we can exclude those remedies which do not have hemorrhagic manifestations in their pathogenesis, but chiefly affect other organs or parts like lymphatic, skin, etc. Lastly, quotes of few stalwarts in homeopathy on totality of symptoms. William Borick says, the totality of symptoms consists in the systematic ascertaining of all the symptomatic facts necessary to determine the curative remedy. J. N. Kanjilal says, the totality of symptoms is not a haphazard conglomeration of symptoms but must represent a disease condition in its whole extent, must be the true picture or portrait of the whole disease, that is, the disordered state of health of the individual. It must identify the whole sickness of the individual with all its individual characteristics. So that's all for this video. If you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe it now and also click on the bell icon and select all so that you will not miss any of our informative, educational and interesting videos on homeopathy. Please provide your valuable feedback in the comment section. Also, we will love to answer your queries on this topic. Thank you for watching.